Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life.
And Professor Sunreis Productions!
Hello class, Professor Sunreis here. In today's class we're gonna take a look at a replay analysis of me, Brave Virtual versus Marincess. This is probably the most interesting deck right now. Sadly, it came out in a time here in Europe where it doesn't really had a chance to compete at any nationals, and in the NA nationals it will have the ability to compete there, so it's very interesting to see. But with the power of the elements coming up, this might be a little too late for the Marincess deck. But anyways, if you're interested in how to beat Marincess video, similar on a video I did against Eldritch, Reis, Despia, definitely let me know in the comment section. Also, I'm sorry for not posting in a while. The boy himself got the corona, but I lived through it quite easy. I only had like 1 or 2 days where it was like really bad, but like nothing major where I had to like call an ambulance or something. So I'm pretty fit right now. Yesterday was the first day I could really concentrate again and play some games. So hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave some feedback down below, and let's get right into the replay. So here we are in the replay. We are playing against Elijah Green 14, which is I think a very well-known YouTuber. No, I think it's just a very well-known player. Let's take a look at the hands. Show both hands. So the opponent won the die roll. They are on Sleepy Maiden, which is like the generic one-off extender, mainly used because it does have the ability to equip one out of the graveyard if you are like on a bad hand. They have an Imperm, they have a blue tank, probably the best starter, and then with Silent Angler and Springer, very good extenders. In our hand is complete as we have barely a playable hand. So I wonder who will win this one. They start out with a normal summon of Blue Tang. Blue Tang is completely nuts, being basically Gazelle and Foxy Tune in one card. Not Foxy Tune, Foxy. Only Foxy. So, let's just fast forward here. They will be sending a Seahorse, and I honestly just decided to call it the day here because I would never be able to break this one. So, Game 2, our opening hand is also bad as well. Ash is like decent, I guess. Lulu Griffin Rider is at least a Baroness, and Anti-Spell does hinder the opponent's game plan quite well, especially in a hand like this. So it's not the worst, but it's not good either. I decided to, I think, go for Baron here, just because Anti-Spell plus Baron is quite good. Because the opponent is forced to set their spell traps and I can just pop them. And in a simplified game set, this is quite vital. And also any virtual top deck means that I can in Semper Phase use Baron to get back the Lulu and at least play. And with Anti-Spell Ash and Baron, I'm feeling quite okay here. Also, the second time I drew Draco back, right? The opponent is drawing a Bela, which is like perfectly fine. In Semper Phase, we will be flipping this. The opponent is probably, I think this is a one-card combo, but it just doesn't play through an Omni Negate. So I think they will just use to normal summon here, chaining 1 Slug, chaining 2 Spring. Doesn't really matter to negate here because it does chain block and it's just a mill 1. So it's not really something relevant. They will just be adding back the Spring Girl, have it there for next turn. Save a few life points, maybe mill something good, but it's probably just like a good resource play. Nothing too major. So, draw for turn is a Chucha. Complete ass. At this point I was so mad. So the game plan here is simple. You just have to be able to use Baron control to the maximum. We know that the opponent are on Battle Ocean, and they have 2 sets, which are probably like quite good cards. So I decided to use the pop on one of them. This doesn't really matter. I decided I'm not really that pressured by a Battle Ocean. These are probably starters like Silent Mining, Pot of Desires, Dive, so way better cards than one Battle Ocean. So I decided to go for them. The opponent is trying to Vela here, which I am letting through just because I can always just use my negate on one of these cards anyways. And maybe there's something better to negate. And I also thought I had 1 Ash. So I now know this is a very good card, and I know I have 1 Ash, and like I think all of the cards which were in my head, and I think all of the cards which Marincess deck is playing, can be ashed, so I know I at least have one ash for this play. Just gotta hope that the other one is not good. And I still have the negate, so I still have everything which I wanted to have. So the opponent drew a Silent Angler, which is not really something I want to see here because it is a water extender. So let's see how they play this out. They decide to flip the Battle Ocean, decide to activate the Dive, which does summon from deck now, which is kind of bad. I think, yeah, I decided to Ash this here. Like, there's no Gamma, which this deck plays, so there's nothing you have to fear. Then they decide to Desires. So we know that they have a Spring Girl in hand, which is a 1-card starter. Do we decide to negate this here? By the way, also, I haven't really played against Marincess, especially at this point. This replay is a little bit older. I haven't played against the deck too much. I think I'm letting this not go through, right? Because I don't really fear that one Spring Girl, because while it is a 1-card combo, it doesn't really do a lot. Which is like something you have to keep in mind. The Marincess deck is quite fair. Also, they hit a Pascalus here, which is kind of nasty. The Marincess deck itself is quite fair. So it's nothing too major where you have like no chance of playing whatsoever if they just get their combo through. It's just one spell negate and like a good resource loop next to it. So they are linking into Corol an Anonymity, trigger Battle Ocean, equip. Doesn't really do anything here. I think it's just a mandatory effect, right? When you link summon a card, you can equip. No, okay, so it's doesn't really do anything. So they use an Anonymity to revive Spring Girl. Hard thing here on the opponent's side. Spring Girl and Anonymity go into Triangle, triggering this the Anonymity, adding back. Battle Ocean, re-equipping. Then use this, get rid of the Spring Girl, search Wave. Special summon Silent Angler. Go into the Argonaut, effect Battle Ocean, getting Triangle and all of the other links. The only one which is very relevant is the Anemone, just because if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add back 1. Battle phase, this does get 200 for all Marincess monsters. No, this gets 200 like baseline, and then 600 for every equip. So it's at 4.3k, I think. Yes, math. So draw for turn is a Laula, which is like a virtual name at least. The opponent is on a Nib, a Marincess Wave, and a Spell Trap Negate. So it's not looking too clean for us here. We do activate the Chucha, which would have been a turn skip if the opponent would have negated it, but they didn't. So now we are actually allowed to play here. Lao on the Chucha, they have no disruption for that whatsoever. Sending a Qinglong, reviving the Lulu, and then we use the Qinglong. They decide to negate it here, which they can't, because Argonaut needs to negate spell traps on the field. So this is definitely a misplay. Don't think there's any card which I could have top decked, which would have been relevant here, because like what's the other spell trap negate you would use? With like basically only a Brave card, and I cannot activate my Brave card yet because of anti-spell. So definitely a huge misplay on the opponent's part here. We decided to add a Lulu, pitch Draco back, Lulu on the Chucha here, sending Qinglong, adding GG. So this is the third summon here. Now we decide to use GG on the Lulu, sending a Chucha. So we have the add back here, and now we just try to get as much value out of our hand as possible. We have a few lines here. We can go for a Synchro 6, or we could go for a rank 3 plus a rank 6, which is basically the 2 lines which are there. They still are on a Marincess Wave. We decided to go for a Break Sword here, just because it had the 2 lines of play. With this one, we force out the Argonaut, or get rid of it. or at least force out the wave, and then we can use a rank 6 to get rid of graveyard resources and Pascalas, and get rid of the anemone or stuff like that, just so that we get rid of the most resources the opponent have. We use Breaksword to get rid of Anti-Spell, and this Anti-Spell at this point doesn't really do a lot. Of course, the opponent is the first one which would benefit from and popped Anti-Spell, but at this point I have to live with it, and they decided to use the Marincess Wave, which is totally fine with me, because now we use the Chucha on the Lulu, go for a Fan. Of course, we also still have a Chucha pop in the opponent's turn, which is like pretty nice. We use the Fan on the Battle Ocean, because we can run over this one if the Battle Ocean's not there. They are deciding to read it, and on summon use the Nibiru. Of course, it does just make sense to protect your resources like that. So now we do have a big ass Nip token on our side of the field. They do have the anemone, but it doesn't really do a lot, just because we do still have that one Chucha pop available to us. They decide to get back Spring Girl, end phase, GG, add back Lulu, plus a Chucha pop. We are fine unless they draw something very good here. And with a big Nip token with 3k defense. Actually, it's only 3k defense and a lot of attack. But they still cannot run overhead, so that's fine. Draw for turn is an Abyss Shark. Let me read this card. If once you control water, you can special summon this card. Okay. So, what is the play here? The opponent does have that one Spring Girl. If we pop it, the opponent has no way to play next turn just because of the anti-spell, which is actually relevant because they have a Pascalas in their graveyard, which can add back a dive, which would summon something out of the graveyard or the deck. It doesn't really matter at this point. They just need one body. So the opponent is... Let's see how they will play this out. Activating the Spring Girl, banishing probably just a Link monster, yes. And we are deciding to let this go through. No, it was just the effect which we said is okay. Yeah, we definitely pop this here. I don't know why I wouldn't. You definitely want to pop the first normal summon in a simplified game state, or just if you have multiple disruptions, always best to just hit the first normal summon if possible with a pop. They have very hard time recovering from that, especially if you play Brave Virtual or Virtual in general and you have Shen. Like the most common way to recover from that would be a dive, or would be a Spring Girl in hand to banish, because this is like the only in-archetype extenders which don't require a Link monster on the field. So if you get rid of it and they cannot revive out of the graveyard, or cannot banish out of the graveyard, they have a very hard time to recover from that. But of course now they use the Spring Girl, so they cannot even use the Spring Girl here to extend. They use the Pascalas to get the dive. And now they really hate themselves for not hitting the anti-spell. And they gonna admit defeat here. Definitely very hard misplayed here. An easy win on their part. Nothing, like I shouldn't be in this game here whatsoever. So the opponent decides to go first. Opening hand is E-Tailed Kowloon, Evenly Matched Adventure Lulu, so at least a playable hand. I decided to side it evenly here, which is probably not something you would want to do. The deck itself runs 2 Spell Trap Negate as a baseline end board, so you would just decide to throw away your battle phase. But the problem is the deck also runs a Gozen Match, and Gozen Match is like cool. It's okay, I can definitely handle it, but it's not something easily outed for me. So I decided to just run an evenly match and try to hit the Gozen Match that way. And my thought process was my side deck overall was quite bad. I definitely have to tune it a little more for like a Marincess matchup, because I'm siding an evenly match against a deck which builds 2 Spell Trap Negates as its baseline board, or at least one. But my thought process was that I kind of want to hit the Gozen Match as well, because it's so hard for me to deal with it, and evenly matches was my best bet in the side deck, next to Reboot, of course. So, our opening hand is quite good. The opponent is on a Called By, a Dive, a Seahorse, and an Abyss Shark, plus a Desires, which is like a pretty good hand. Let's see what they banish here. They're also on shared right, which is definitely interesting. Banished one goes a match, banished ash, pretty nothing too major here apart from the shared right. They draw a wave and an ash. Yes. So they now go for Seahorse, which of course is one of the many one-card starters the deck has. Just needs something which they can summon back from the graveyard. And Blue Slug being able to add the Seahorse. Seahorse being able to summon itself into a zone Marincess Link monster points to. Now they can link it into the Sea Angel. Sea Angel will, at least to my knowledge, will almost always add a dive, which is like, unless they have a shit ton of extenders in their hand, or they already have a dive, they will always add a dive, and the Battle Ocean is only the second card which they add. Interesting that they added a dive here. They banished the... Oh, they banished the Battle Ocean. Okay, never mind. Not interesting. They banished it. So the thought process here for you should be, okay, they already have a Battle Ocean, or they have either they have a shit ton of defensive cards, they have a Battle Ocean, or they banish the Battle Ocean. Because they have so many cards, it's like guaranteed they should have it, like an extender or enough to play. But yeah, this just makes me think that they have a shit ton of defensive cards and they want to have that as an extender. Slash as follow-up, or they just banish it. It's kind of hard to evaluate in this scenario here, but the opponent is link those two into the Anemone, and then Anemone revive Seahorse, link those into link 3, trigger Anemone, get back the Seahorse, and then they can use the Marbled Rock to, I think it also adds back one. Yes, it would add one back, but it's not like it's gonna do a lot here. We actually get a big evenly match here. I don't even know if you can do this, but I didn't care at this point. I don't think you can. Draw for turn is the Nib, which of course is not really that good right now, but Nib is like an insane card against all the Cybers decks right now. It's an auto win against Salad. It's an auto win against not against Marincess, because there are variants which play the Sharks and which they can do a very early Toad. But against Ethicness, against all the Cybers decks, Nibiru is just really good right now, and a draw for turn Nib is still very fine, especially in a scuffed game state like this. We go Battle Phase, activate the Evenly, getting insane value out of it, which is like nasty. Yeah, the opponent is... arguably, the opponent is mad here, and I can understand it. We decide to use the Kowloon, definitely something you want to Ash going second. I'm always a huge fan of it. Like, not really, but it's like a good play to do. Of course, having the Emergency Teleport as a punish is really bad. We decide to Lulu on this one just to play around, I think in Roll, which was probably the thought process. I just was a little too scared about that. I'd rather have the Chucha than than just nothing, having Enchantress Engrave and basically doing nothing. So now we use the Adventure, get Enchantress, add Enchantress, get Enchantress into the grave, effect Enchantress Engrave. Holy shit! Excuse me for a second here. So while I'm feeling quite okay, my voice definitely hasn't come back. But anyways, I hope you can live through that with me. So we decided to use the Lulu, like I said, to play around the Droll, getting back the Chucha. Even though we couldn't activate it under the Droll, I still thought it was probably the best bet to do. Just so that we have it. Just because activating Adventure, adding Enchantress, pitching Enchantress does basically nothing. It's just one card we have more here. We will always be able to trigger the Draco back, search with the right activation, effect Adventure, add Draco back. Now we can use the Qinglong to add probably a GG, just because we have a Nib, which is an auto win against the deck, so we don't need to commit a lot of resources. It also does trigger a Neon, so we are able to get the both banishes of the virtual cards for the Chucha. So I thought GG is just the best bet here. Draco back, equip itself to the token, which is like insane because now we can play around the Marincess wave, which they cannot activate. They decide to throw the wave On what? Oh, it also makes them unaffected, of course. So now we forced out that. It only makes them unaffected by opponent's card effects. So it does also can still be run over by battle. So we are not really that scared. We know about one seahorse in hand. So now we just gotta figure out how to build the most optimal amount of disruption. So we now do a big thing. We sadly do have to use GG here to send a Chucha, so we cannot trigger the Neon, sadly, but it should be fine. We go for Coral Dragon here, effect Chucha on the GG, and we decide to go for a Crystal Wing. Shanshan at this point is not that big of a deal because they already have a few Marincess cards in their graveyard. Baron is just another spell just another hard negate, which is basically the same as Crystal Wing. But the problem with that is that I would have gotten rid of the token, and the token next turn can still be turned into a full Brave Engine with the Adventure, or it's just another card which they have to deal with. Is kind of hard to out. Of course, I will have a Nib, which is something which is probably gonna get used, but I just thought that in the scenario where the Crystal Wing is enough, having the token is probably the best bet, even though I probably win there if Chucha Crystal Wing is enough. So maybe I should have gone for the Baron, just so that I have the Omni Negate. But I think overall it doesn't really matter what we go for here. Then again, maybe we should have gone for a Baron, just because if they do have a Veiler, which we did nothing to force out here, they probably could have won here. So yeah, it's kind of hard. Probably should have gone for a Baron, now that I think about it. But we have gone for the Crystal Wing, summon it, Coral Dragon, it draws a GG, so that's a nice amount of follow-up. Add back Lulu in the end phase. Draw for turn a blue tank, which is an insane draw. Now that I think about it, I think in Stamper phase you should hit the Marbled Rock here. Just because it is a link. But no, should we hit this? This is kind of hard. If we hit the Marbled Rock and they normal summon Seahorse, which is the play we know of, and they link into the link 1, they try to add back Seahorse, we can just pop that. It's interesting. Probably should have hit that, but I think it's not the correct play. So they decided to use the Seahorse here. Us having a Nib makes it also very safe for us, and we should let the opponent commit here, so it's probably the correct play not to hit the Marbled Rock here. So now they decide to add back the Trap, which we decide to negate just because it is another disruption. It gets rid of a Link 3, which is of course huge, and just gets rid of the disruption, which they of course would have just used on the Crystal Wing, so we had to negate it. So we got rid of that. Now the opponent is summoning a blue Tang, sending Spring Girl. We decide to think here, and we do Chucha it, which is definitely not the correct play if it's the last disruption. If it's the last disruption, you probably should have hit the Anemone, because now the opponent's just gonna link into Blue Slug effect, add back Spring Girl, and now they can play, but we always had the Nib, plus 2 forms of follow-up in GG Lulu. That's like a very easy game for us at this point. Spring Girl effect, engrave, mill something, doesn't matter. It's a Gozen, Anemone effect, add back Blue Tang, summon Blue Tang. At this point we just Nib and the opponent is Dunzo. No, that's not the Nib token. Not the Nib. Anemone triggers, adding something back. What does the Bishark actually do? If all monsters you control, you can special summon this card, and if you do at level 3 or 4 or 5 fish monster for that, you cannot special except water monsters. Why didn't they go for this? If all monsters you control are water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, add 1 level 3, 4 or 5 fish monster from your deck to your hand. Oh, because it's actually not level 4. Wait, it can also be used as for number. Oh, only for number. Ah, okay. I figured. They add back a blue tang. So the reason why this is good in shark decks, because they end on a number monster, but this deck just goes for a Bahamut Shark, which is not a number monster, I think. So it's mainly a water extender, which also gets you a level 4, which in turn with most of the Marincess lets you go into Bahamut Shark. And then you use the Abyss Shark to go into probably into a Coral Anemone or something like that, which is the only link monster which doesn't require a Marincess. So, seemed pretty bad. I know there are lists which are run this, which they facilitate early toad plays, but as you can see, I think this was dead in 2 hands, or they didn't use it in 2 out of 3 hands, maybe in even all of the hands. I think game 1 they had it in hand as well, but we just scooped. So this seems kind of lackluster. Draw for turn is a Kowloon, which of course is already game by itself. We decide to use Enchantress here. Enchantress, get the ride. I think I sided one out, so I got it out of the graveyard. Summon token, Lulu on the Chucha. Yeah, we just win here at this point. The opponent... Oh, maybe they sided... Oh, they banished all of the silent anglers. Okay, that is bad. So, of course, the opponent has nothing to do here anymore. They have no disruption whatsoever, which was pretty obvious on my part because they didn't disrupt me last turn. I mean, I guess they could have drawn one, but even then, it's just one disruption, which I'm easily be able to play through just because I would do in Baron very early. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this replay. Still definitely a lot to learn from me and against the Marincess deck, but just having a hard draw nib, of course, is like really good. So, definitely let me know if you want to get a more in-depth video on how to play against Marincess, which is basically the only thing I feel like which is worth to do in the current format. For next format, I've done a lot of testing against Flight, against Tier Elements, testing the Brave Virtual's Punk list. Do you even play the Brave list? Which is definitely something which will come on this channel. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, are you interested in and how to beat Marincess deck? Let me know in the comments. Holy shit, I can't speak anymore. Let me know in the comments below. But without further ado, you guys are dismissed. Class is out. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.